Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the ASAP online classes for engineering students. Today's session, we will cover framed buildings in construction technology for semester 4 civil engineering students. This session is handled by Ms. Shiji PV, Assistant Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Kottayam. She has over 15 years teaching experience and has over 2 years industrial experience. I would like to welcome ma'am on behalf of ASAP and students to this session. Over to you, ma'am. We shall start the session.
Today we are going to deal with the framed building. That is the first half of the fifth module in construction technology. And these are the topics I am going to cover. So in tall buildings, we will see what is a framed building or what is the difference between a steel and a concrete framed building. What are the different structural systems which are available in a tall buildings or framed building? And what is formwork and what are the different joints in concrete structures? If time permits, we will see what is a prefabricated construction as well as a slip form construction. Okay. So before we go into the details of a framed building, what do you mean by a tall building? We always see tall buildings, and the tall buildings, we can say a tall building is a multi-story building, a high-rise building, or a skyscraper. So how can you differentiate? Or before that, what is the main reason why we are going for tall buildings? Instead of moving parallelly, why we are going for tall, or why the construction is going towards tall? Main reason behind that is one of the reason is increasing the land cost, and the other one is cost. So based on these two reasons, we are always moving towards. So the main reason behind the construction of tall building is one of the reason is increasing the land cost, and the other one is the cost of transportation. So based on these two reasons, we are always moving towards the tall constructions. Okay. Now, the tall buildings can be either a multi-story building, a high-rise building, or a skyscrapers. So these multi-story buildings are the buildings which are having 3 to 10 story height. So that can be termed as a multi-story building. Now, high-rise buildings means the buildings up to 50-meter height. And above 50-meter height, buildings can be termed as a skyscraper. And these skyscrapers can be a super tall or a mega tall. So super tall skyscrapers can be buildings which are having height above 300 meters. And those above 600 meters, they are termed as mega tall skyscrapers. Now, what are the main challenges we are facing for the construction of tall buildings? One of the main challenges is the design itself. So when you go for the construction of tall buildings, you have to always consider the lateral forces in design. So what are the lateral forces? Lateral forces are mainly the horizontal forces. So wind load as well as seismic or earthquake loads are mainly considered as the lateral loads that have to be considered in tall buildings for the construction or the design of tall buildings. Other than that, we have to consider these challenges also. That means lift, then area of construction is limited in the case of tall buildings. And you go towards top, the area of construction is limited. Then safety requirements are to be considered. Then lack of skilled workers as well as sophisticated instruments or equipments. Then transportation of materials as well as machineries to the construction site or towards the area. So these are the main challenges we are facing when you are constructing a tall building. Okay. Now we can see what are the different structural systems for a tall building. So mainly 5 type of structural systems are to be considered for the construction of tall building. So they can be, one is RC structural wall, that is reinforced concrete structural walls. Then steel framed structural system or tube structural system, bundled tube construction or trussed tube construction. So we can see one by one in detail. First one is reinforced concrete structural walls. Okay. So what is RC structural wall? In short, it can be termed as shear walls. So these shear walls are very important when you go for a top building or when you go for a multi-story building or skyscrapers. And when multi-story buildings are considered, always these dynamic forces come into action, particularly in earthquake-prone areas. So shear walls are very efficient in reducing the effect of that forces. So what is a shear wall? Shear wall is a long continuous wall which is provided throughout the height of the building. So it can be termed as a continuous vertical wall which is constructed throughout the height. It can be constructed either using reinforced concrete or a masonry wall. And this shear wall, I told you, the shear wall is very efficient in resisting the gravity loads as well as the lateral forces. So shear walls are particularly important in case where there is the effect of dynamic forces. Dynamic force means earthquake forces, wind forces, etc. Okay, and it is actually acting as a cantilever beam because it is actually extending from the bottom towards the top of the building. So it is acting like a single cantilever wall. It can be constructed in the core of the building as well as it can be either on the periphery or perimeter of the building, or it can be on the inside of the building also. And it especially it is used for tall high-rise buildings because it is having sufficient stiffness as well as strength, rigidity in the plane, so that it can be used for these high-rise buildings. And again, this shear wall is particularly appropriate for such buildings which is repetitive in nature. That means the floor to floor is repetitive in nature plan. Why? Because this shear wall can be extended towards the top in the same way. So that is why this is particularly important in the case if floor by floor plan is similar. Okay, example in the case of hotels and residential buildings, apartments, etc. And when shear wall is provided, it need not be symmetrical in plan, but if it is symmetrical, we can reduce the effect of torsion or twist. So that is the effect of shear wall. Okay, now, so you can see the shear wall system. This gray color indicates the shear wall. So this is a high-rise building. This gray color indicates this is a continuous vertical wall which is extended from the foundation towards the top of the building. And for this particular building, again, this orange shaded portion that indicates the shear wall. So this is a shear wall. This is again a shear wall, and the inside portion also you can see shear walls. So it can be provided on the periphery as well as inside of the building also. Okay. So such type of walls are known as shear walls. Now coming towards the advantages of shear wall system. So as I told you, it can reduce the effect of earthquake damage, or it is particularly important in the case if it is an earthquake prone area. Then easy construction and implementation, it reduces the lateral sway. Lateral sway means lateral movement of the building or horizontal movement towards one side. So that can be reduced. Again, it provides sufficient strength, rigidity, stiffness also. Okay. And this walls can be act as an acoustic or a fire insulator. So these are the main advantages of using a shear wall system. Okay. Now, where we can place the shear walls. I told you it can be either placed symmetrically or unsymmetrically. But if it is placed symmetrically, it can reduce the effects of torsion or twist. It can be either on the exterior or interior of the building. Okay, this shows some of the geometry and location of the shear walls. You can see on the left side, these are all good arrangements or the geometry of the shear walls. This dark portion indicates the shear walls. These corners are all shear walls. Okay, here also this is a shear wall. These are all shear walls. Now this is again shear walls. So here it is provided on the periphery of the building. Here also we can see it is on the periphery of the building. And these are all poor geometry or location compared to this one. Sorry. Compared to this one, this is poor. So this is better shape compared to or better positioning compared to this one, like this. Okay. Now, what are the design considerations of a shear wall? Mainly, the shear wall is provided at a thickness of about say 150 to 400 millimeters or 50 to 40 centimeters. And the reinforcement is to be provided throughout. And the minimum reinforcement is 0.25% of gross cross-sectional area in each direction. And the diameter, it should not be it should not exceed 1/10th of the thickness of the section. If you are providing a thickness of 40 centimeter, it should not, the diameter should not be greater than 1 by 10th of that one. Okay. So that is about the shear walls of the first type of structural system. Now the second one is steel framed structural system. Now steel framed structural system means the components, the structural components are made up of steel. That means every columns, beams, slabs, etc. are provided with steel. Okay. So rolled steel structural sections are mainly used for the steel framed structural system. You know what are rolled steel sections? Rolled steel sections can be a flat section, it can be an I section, T section, channel section, angle section, etc. Any type of structural steel sections can be used, depending upon the type of the building or depending upon the function to be served. Okay. Now it will be it is having both horizontal as well as vertical members. That means the columns as well as beams, which is made up of steel. And steel beams are used to resist the loads which are applied laterally to their axis. And the columns are used to take the compressive stresses. Okay. So this forms a steel structural framework or a steel structural system with columns and beams which are made up of steel. Okay. The main disadvantage of this type of system is that if you are increasing the stories above 40 stories, the spacing between the columns has to be reduced. So that is the main disadvantage of these type of systems. So it is uneconomical to go above 40 stories. So that is the disadvantage of a steel structural system. Now, what are the advantages? Besides these disadvantages, there are a lot of advantages for steel framed buildings. So what is the main advantage of a steel section is that it is actually ductile in nature, or it is having high strength also. So high strength as well as the cross-sectional area can be reduced. Depending upon the load to be transferred, can take high strength as well as based on that strength, the sectional properties or the sectional area also can be reduced. So the weight is the main factor in the case of steel framed buildings. The load of that load can be reduced. So the weight of the structure can be reduced considerably. Steel is very ductile in nature. That means it can bend without cracking. Without a crack formation, it can take its load by bending action. Then it can be made to any shape, and cladding also is possible with this steel material. And installation is easy. Can be used for large spans as well as can be used to resist the dynamic forces also. So these are the advantages of steel framed structures. So disadvantages, I told you the disadvantage. Again, some of the disadvantages are it is susceptible to fire and it reduces its strength at high temperatures. And it is again prone to corrosion also in marine environment. So based on these disadvantages as well as advantages, and depending upon the area where the construction is to be done, we can go for these type of structures. Now the third one is a tube structural system. A tube structural system means it is actually a three-dimensional space structure. It can be composed of 3 or more structural frames. They are jointed together at or near the edges. You can see the figure. So this shows a framed tube structural system. In this case, columns and beams are connected to form frames. So the frames can be exterior frames as well as interior frames will be there. The exterior frames will be acting as a rigid frame and that can resist the lateral forces. And this interior frames can be used to resist the gravity loads also. Okay. So this consists of, these are all framed or braced frames. They are jointed at or near their edges, composed of 3 or more different frames. And this will be consisting of exterior columns and beams as well as interior columns as well as beams. So exterior frames as well as interior frames can be provided. Okay. So that is a framed tube structural system. You can see the figure. And the advantages of using this type of system is that the interior columns, the number of interior columns can be reduced. So if the interior columns are reduced means you will get a lot of flow radius. That is the main advantage of using a framed tube structural structural system, as well as it is economical to go for higher stories. Now, the fourth type of construction, framed construction, is a bundled tube construction. In the case of bundled tube construction, it is just same as that of a framed tube construction, and in this case, a number of framed tubes are joined together or connected together to act as a single unit. You just see the figure, a number of tubes are joined together to act as a single unit. You can see the figures. And these tubes may not be of similar shape. It can be of different shape. You can see different shaped tubes which are connected together. And it is acting as a single unit. So that is a bundled tube construction. Okay. Now, these bundled tube constructions are maintaining a slenderness ratio. That means a height to width ratio that increases the stability, stiffness, and strength of the building. Again, here also the advantages are the stiffness. So based on that slenderness ratio, it increases the, or it provides sufficient stiffness on the building, as well as it acts as a single unit. Okay. Now the fifth and the last type of framed construction is a trussed tube construction. Now, the trussed tube construction, it is just similar to a framed tube construction, and in this case, the exterior frames are jointed by means of bracings or trusses. You can see the figure. So this is a trussed tube construction. Here, just like a frame in which the exterior columns are joined by means of X bracings. That actually increases the rigidity or stiffness of the frame. So the main advantage of using a trussed tube construction is that the lateral loads on the building can be reduced by providing these bracings. And again, the interior columns, the number of interior columns can be reduced so that we will get a sufficient floor area. So these are the different types of framed constructions or framed constructions or structural systems in tall buildings. I'll tell you once again, the first one is a shear wall, that is an RC structural wall. Then you have framed bundled tube construction, then framed tube construction, trussed tube construction, steel framework. Okay. Now, what is the difference between a steel framed structures and a concrete framed structures? In the conventional method, we are always using concrete framed construction. But nowadays, steel framed structures are gaining importance. Now we can see what is a steel framed structure. Okay. Now a steel framed structure, I told you earlier, it is consisting of beams, columns, slabs, etc. Everything will be made up of rolled steel structural sections. You can see the figure. These structural sections can be either a flat section or a tube section. It can be an I section, T section, channel section, angle section, etc. Now, what are steel framed structures? The steel framed structures can be constructed either by means of fabrication or by means of bolting. Fabrication by means of welding as well as bolting connection. Okay, so the conventional method is welding. And what is the conventional fabrication method? So in that method, the steel sections are cut to correct length and size, and then it is welded together to make a final structure. So the different components are joined by means of welding. So this can be either done at the construction site or at the workshop. When it is done in a workshop, it has to be transported to the site and right. So that is the conventional fabrication method of steel structures. But nowadays we are using a bolted steel construction technique, and that is the most preferred one also. So in a bolted steel construction method, first of all, the fabricators are producing finished steel components to the required length, and it is painted and transported to the site, and it is bolted in position. So finishing the product to the required length or to the correct length, then it is transported to the site, and then it is erected, and then the components, different components are bolted together. So that is the main thing which is happening in bolted steel connection. So the most of the fabrication is actually done in the workshop itself with the right machineries as well as the right conditions, working conditions. Then it is transported to the site either by means of a truck or a trailer. And the size of the component to be transported depends upon the size of the truck or the trailer which is used. If it is a truck which is available, we can go up to a 6-meter long member. And if it is a trailer which is available, long trailers, it can go up to a 12 meter. So it is fabricated, then transported to the site, then it is erected, and different components are bolted together. That means columns, beams, etc. are bolted together by means of bolts with plates in between them. So these are the two construction techniques which are adopted for a steel structural framework system. And I told you earlier what are the advantages of steel framed structures. The main advantage is its strength, weight can be reduced, then ductility, that's the main important factor. That means it is actually flexible. Ductility means it is flexible. So whenever there is dynamic forces, the main flexibility which comes into action. So that actually reduces the earthquake damages or damages due to earthquake, wind, etc. Okay. Now the disadvantages also I told you earlier. Now what is a concrete framed construction? Okay. The conventional method of construction is a concrete framed construction. You can see this building, it will be having different components such as these vertical components are the columns, then you have the slabs, then beams are provided below the slabs, then foundation, etc. walls which will be provided. So this is a typical RC frame building, reinforced concrete frame building. So it will be consisting of a foundation part, then from the columns will be the vertical members, then that will be supported, or these beams will be provided between the columns. So this is a beam, horizontal members are all beams, then slabs will be provided at each floor. So this is the typical RC frame building. So what are the different components in a concrete framed construction? So these are the main components of a concrete framed construction, that is foundation, plinth, columns, lintels, beams and slab. So before we go into the details of each component, I told you what is a concrete framed construction. It is actually made up of rigid frames. Rigid frames means the frame which is composed of columns as well as beams which are constructed monolithically. That means, and it is rigid in nature also. Rigidity means this, you can see the angle between this, suppose if the angle between this beam column is 90 degree, and if it is subjected to some type of forces, maybe gravity loads are there, or wind load or earthquake, any type of loading may act on it, this angle remains the same. So that type of structures is a rigid structure. Before bending as well as after bending also, it will maintain that angle between the members. So that type of structure is a rigid structure. So RC building can act as a rigid structure. Beams and columns are constructed monolithically. Okay, and the stiffness of the frame depends upon the bending stiffness of the columns, bending stiffness of these columns, as well as beams and the connection between them, beams, columns. Okay. Now, so these are the components of a reinforced concrete frame building. Now, the first part is the foundation. Foundation, this red shade indicates the foundation. These are the foundation provided for this particular building. Now, so what is actually a foundation? Foundation means it is the lowermost part of the building. And you know the basic functions of foundation. Actually transmits the total load from the structure towards the ground. So that is the main function of foundation, as well as it provides a level and a firm surface. And it provides a stability to the structure. So the foundation, it transfers the load from the structure to the ground. It distributes the load over a very larger area. Provides a level surface. It provides stability to the structure, and it provides unequal settlement. Unequal settlement means different parts of the building settles by different amount. So that is known as unequal settlement. So if settlement happens it should be equal. Otherwise, it will damage the whole structure. So, foundation actually prevents the unequal settlement of the structure. Mainly, two types of foundations are being provided. One is shallow foundation as well as deep foundation. So, shallow foundation and deep foundation, you have already studied these type of foundations in your earlier modules in the construction technology itself. Anyway, shallow foundation, the depth will be less, and in deep foundation, the depth will be more. The example of a deep foundation is a pile foundation. I'm not going into the details of types of foundation. You have already studied that one. Okay, so see, these are some foundation pits. The reinforcement which is provided for the foundation. And the column is extended from the foundation itself. Okay, so these are some foundation, shallow foundations. Now plinth. So this shows the plinth. Above the foundation, we have to provide a plinth. The top of the plinth will be acting as the surface, the bottom surface of the building. Now this third part is a column. Column is one of the main important part in a building. So these red members, structural members are the column members. So you know, column is a vertical member, and the main function of the column is to carry the compressive loads. Okay. So these columns are actually transmitting the load from the beams. The beams are carrying the loads which is transmitted towards the column, and column itself will be transmitted towards the foundation. So transfer the load from beams to foundation, carries compressive loads, and overloading can cause buckling of column. The buckling means bending of column. Now, shear walls. I told you shear walls. What is a shear wall? What is the main function of a shear wall? So I'm not going into the details anymore. So this shows a shear wall, the wall which is extended from the foundation towards the top of the building. Now lintels. Lintels also, you know, you have already studied lintels, arches, etc. Now lintels are the members, flexural members, which are provided above every openings. When a window or a door or any opening is to be provided, you have to provide a flexural member. It can be a reinforced concrete member, which is provided above the opening. And the main function of the lintel is to transfer or is to take the load above that opening. So this load will be carried by this member. This opening cannot take that load. That is why lintels are provided. Now arches. Arches, same as that of lintels. So arches are mainly provided for larger spans, and it actually carries the compressive load. So this shows an arch. It takes its load by compressive action. And beams. Beams are again one of the most important parts of a structural framework. So this red shades indicate the structural beams. So beams are all horizontal members. So beam is actually supporting the slabs above that one. Or the loads from the slab is being carried by the beams, and it will be taken to the columns. It will be taken to the columns, then towards the foundation. So beam is again a flexural member or a bending member. It transfers the load from the slab towards the column. So this is again an example or a picture of a beam. So this shows beams. These are all beams. Now the last part is a slab. So slab is again another structural part, the topmost part. For every floor we are providing slab. So slab actually carries the load by bending action, and this load is being transferred to the beams, then it is being transferred to the column. So this shows some reinforcement which is provided for a slab before concreting. So you can see the reinforcement details. So it is provided in both direction, horizontal as well as in the vertical horizontal direction in both ways. Okay. So now you know what's the difference between a reinforced concrete structure as well as a steel structure. So these are the main differences, and both are having advantages as well as disadvantages. So when you take a reinforced concrete framed structure, the cross-sectional area will be large. That means when you take any member, whether it is a beam or a column or a slab, we have to increase the size of the member depending upon the load to be transferred. But when you consider a steel framed structure, the same weight can be taken by less cross sectional area elements by using rolled steel sections. And the tensile strength is more in the case of a steel framed structure, but for a concrete structure, the compressive strength, it can take a lot of compressive strength, but that it cannot take, or it can take only limited tension. And speed of construction is less in concrete. In steel frame, it can be increased because most of the work can be done in the workshop itself, so that it is transported to the site and it can be erected. But steel framed structures are prone to corrosion, but concrete structures less prone to corrosion. But when reinforcement is provided, the corrosion effect has to be taken into account. Okay. So dead load is more in the case of a reinforced concrete structure, but it is less in the case of steel framed structure. That is the most advantage thing in steel framed structures. So that is about the difference between the framed structural systems in a framed building as well as what is the steel or a concrete framed building. Now we can see composite framed buildings also. So other than the steel framed as well as concrete framed buildings, nowadays composite framed buildings are also being used. So from the name itself, you can say what is a composite framed building. Composite means consisting of different materials. So in a composite framed buildings, we can use steel concrete composition. So that is the most useful combination. That is combination of steel as well as the concrete. So steel beams as well as columns can be provided. The slab can be provided as provided in concrete, etc. Likewise. So that again depends upon the area or space where we are constructing, or depending upon the suitability of the building, etc. Okay. So that is about the framework or the structural systems in a tall buildings. Okay. Now we can see another important thing in buildings, that is formwork. All of you know what is a formwork. So formwork means it is actually a temporary structure which is constructed to mold the different components of concrete. That means when you go to construct a beam or a slab or a column or any part of a building, that should be, the fresh concrete has to be laid on a temporary work. That is known as formwork. So it is actually a temporary structure which is used to hold the fresh concrete for the construction of beams, columns, slabs. Now, the failure of the formwork can lead to the failure of the structure. So 90% failure of structures is due to the failure of the formwork. So when you design a formwork, that should be designed based on the loads as well as the conditions, the existing conditions in the site, etc. And what are the requirements of a formwork? So the main requirement of formwork is the strength itself. The formwork should be designed for desired strength to carry the concrete, and it should have sufficient rigidity, and it should be placed on a non-yielding surface, because when you are pouring concrete into the formwork, it should not slip. And the erection as well as the stripping of the formwork should be easy. Again, it should provide a smooth surface. The leakage should be minimum. That means when you are providing a fresh concrete, it may contain liquid matters, so that it should not be subjected to any leakage, and it should be economical also. So these are the requirements of formwork. And what are the materials mainly we are using for formwork? They are mainly timber formwork as well as steel formwork. Okay. Now, the timber formwork, when you are using timber for formwork, it should be well seasoned timber. It should be an easily workable timber also. And the skin or the surface can be made up of plywood. And the main disadvantage of this type of formwork is that timber formwork is that it can be subjected to swelling, shrinkage, etc. That is, when the concreting is done, it will contain water, so that water can be absorbed by the timber formwork. That is a major disadvantage of timber formwork. So well seasoned timber, easily workable timber, etc. should be used. So besides these disadvantages, nowadays we are going for steel formwork. So the main advantage of using steel formwork is that it can be reused a number of times. So that is the main advantage of using a steel formwork. There is no shrinkage, as well as it does not absorb water from the concrete. So that is again an advantage of steel formwork. It will not absorb water from the fresh concrete. So that's advantage over a timber formwork. Erection and stripping is easy, and it will produce the desired strength also. So steel is having sufficient strength, so that makes it usable for uh, formwork. So this shows a typical formwork for column. So this is a formwork, typical formwork for column. So this is actually made up of a number of planks. This is a steel or a wooden plank. So these a number of planks are being joined together vertically as well as horizontally. So this horizontal planks are known as yokes. And this vertical and horizontal planks are being connected by means of bolts. So this thing can be used as a formwork for the column. So this shows the front view or the elevation or isometric view, and this shows the plan. And this is a typical formwork for a beam and a slab. Beam and slab are constructed monolithically. It cannot be constructed separately. So this shows the beam form, and this beam along with the slab will be there. So this is the typical formwork for a beam and a slab. So that is about the formwork. So this you can see the construction of a column using formwork. So this shows the formwork. Here the steel formwork is being used. The vertical members and the horizontal members are all steel sections, rolled steel sections, and steel plates or flats are being used for the strip or this level surface. So that is about the formwork in construction. Now we can see what are the different joints used in concrete construction. So these joints are mainly used in concrete construction. And what is the importance of joints, or why we are using these type of joints? Okay. So mainly 4 types of joints are used in construction. They are construction joints, expansion joints, contraction joints, and sliding joints. So we will see one by one. First one is a construction joint. So construction joint means the joints which are provided when the construction stops for any reason, or when the construction stops at some location which is not a planned location of contraction or expansion joint. Every building or every concrete building, if it is a large span building, it will be provided with some joints. They are known as contraction or expansion joints. So if such position, if you are providing joints at such a location other than these positions, that joints are known as construction joints. That means whenever we are stopping a construction at some location, we have to provide a construction joint. Or if you are not planning to stop a construction or a concrete construction at a planned location of a joint, then that type of joint is a construction joint. And this construction joints are mainly provided like this. You can see the figure. See this figure. So these are 2 part of a slab. This is one part of a slab. This is another part of a slab. In between, a joint is being provided. This is a construction joint. Okay. Now this joint is provided because the construction is stopped at this particular position due to some reasons. If the construction is stopped at this position, you have to provide a joint. Okay. Now these type of joints allow horizontal displacement between both sides of the slab. These are 2 sides of a slab, and you can these type of joints will provide this horizontal movement in this direction as well as in this direction. But it should not provide any movement in the vertical direction or any rotational motion. So this should be avoided. This should not be taken place in the case of a construction joint. This is okay. So these type of joints allow displacement between the both sides of a slab, and it should be able to transfer the flexural stresses. That means the bending stresses from one part to other. And it must allow the horizontal displacement. So this movement is allowed, but this type of movement, that means the vertical as well as the rotational movement, is not allowed in a construction joint. And mainly two types of construction joints are being provided. One is known as the butt type construction joint, and the second one is known as tank and groove joint. You can see first one is a butt type construction joint. You can see this is one part of a slab, this is another part of a slab, this is an elevation. Okay, and this is the joint which is being provided. Okay, this is the joint. So in the case of a butt type construction joint, a single joint or a two pieces of the slab is jointed by placing it end to end. Such a joint is known as a butt type construction joint. The two ends of the slabs are jointed by means of a jointed end to end together. So such a joint is known as a butt type construction joint. Okay, and it is a weakest joint also. Now the another type is a tank and a groove joint, and this is more suitable than a butt joint. Something similar to a butt joint, but in this case, one part of the slab will be provided with a groove and the other part will be provided with a tank. Or one part will be provided with a slope and the another part will be provided with a ridge. You can see the shape. So one part will be inserted to the another. So this type of joint is more suitable than butt joint. Now the next type of joint is an expansion joint. So in the case of expansion joint, these joints are to be provided when the span of the slab is very large. So if the slab is going beyond 20-30 meters, we have to provide expansion joint because due to temperature changes or due to shrinkage, expansion, etc., the slabs may expand or contract. So that has to be taken care by means of these type of joints. So it is mainly provided to accommodate expansion of adjacent parts of a building or adjacent parts of a slab and relieve the compressive stresses that may develop. When two parts are compressed, two parts are jointed together, there will be compressive stress. So that is being reduced by means of expansion joints. So the gap between the two parts is being filled with some inert material or some filler material. So that type of joint is an expansion joint. And these expansion joints are to be provided according to IS specification. This has to be provided for a minimum 20-30 meter span. So for every 20-30 meter span, we have to provide one expansion joint, and it should be of 0.5 to 0.8 per meter width. That is a minimum spacing or minimum thickness to be provided for this type of joint. So whenever these expands, then whenever these slabs expands towards each other, this filler material contracts. And whenever it is contracting or whenever it is moving towards the other side, this filler material will be expanding. So that is actually happening in the case of expansion joints. So this is an expansion joint. So for every change, like in the shape of L, T, H or V, if these shapes come in the slabs, if any change in direction happens like this, that means in the case of L shape or T shape or H shape or V shape, direction changes there, we have to provide an expansion joint. So this shows an expansion joint between these two components. And this is a construction joint. That's the first type of joint we have already told. Okay. Now the third one is a contraction joint. So these contraction joints are usually provided to take care of shrinkage stresses or take care of dimensional changes. So whenever there is a concrete structure, it will be subjected to atmospheric actions. So due to that, there will be always a shrinkage or a swelling, shrinkage, etc. Expansion or contraction. So that can be taken by means of contraction joints. So that is mainly provided to reduce the shrinkage, cracks and buildings. So this is mainly provided by painting the surface, the portion with a bituminous material, or it can be done by means of a waterproof paper also. So before the other part is casted or concreted, the joints has to be provided with a waterproof paper or by painting by means of a bituminous layer. And the fourth type of joint is a sliding joint. So sliding joints which allows the sliding of the components of a, that means it is required when a portion of the concrete moves in a plane at right angles to the another plane. So you can see if uh, this movement is to be taken place. That means if these two parts move with respect to each other at right angles, we have to provide a joint here. So this joint is known as the sliding joint. So this part, these two parts can slide each other at right angles. So the surface, the first cast surface should be plastered and it should be finished smoothly before the other part is to be concrete. So these are the main four type of joints which are provided in concrete structure. One is a construction joint, then expansion joint, contraction joint as well as a sliding joint. Construction joints are provided when the construction stops at some position other than a contraction or an expansion joint. And expansion joints are provided when the span is very large so that different parts expand to each other. So that has to be taken care by means of an expansion joint. Then contraction joint is mainly provided to reduce the shrinkage effect. And sliding joints if the different components are to be moved with respect to each other at right angles. Now the next part or the next topic is prefabricated construction. So the conventional method of construction of concrete structures is the construction of beams, columns, slabs, etc. everything at site itself. So that is a conventional method of concrete. Now, besides that conventional method, nowadays prefabricated construction is used. So prefabricated construction means most of the components are constructed at a factory or at a workshop. Then it is being transported to the site and erected in position and joined together. So steel members are used, steel structural systems are usually using these type of construction techniques. We have already seen that. But now concrete structures are also doing these type of prefabricated construction. So it is actually a method of construction which includes assembling components of a structure in a manufacturing or a casting site. Then it is transported to the site and assembling is being done. So two stages are to be included in this prefabricated construction. One is the manufacturing of all the components. Then the second one is erection at the site. So mainly the components which are used as in prefabricated buildings are one is roofs or slabs can be used, then beams, columns, walls. These are the main components which are used in prefabricated constructions. So coming to roof or slab, these are the main four types of prefabricated roofs we can use. It can be a solid flat slab, a hollow core slab can be used, a double T slab, or a single T slab. So these things are prefabricated in a workshop or a factory, then it can be transported to the site and it can be erected or joined by means of grout. Okay. Now, these are the different shapes for beams. It can be a rectangular, say simple rectangular beam. It can be an L-shaped beam. It can be an inverted T beam. That means the T is inverted. Then it can be an I section, etc. All these are concrete elements. This dotted line indicates the reinforcement which is being provided. So this can be prefabricated and it can be erected in site. So this is a typical beam column connection. How the beam and the column, concrete beam and the column are being connected at the site. So this is a prefabricated This is a prefabricated column. This is a prefabricated beam. So a groove is being provided between the column and the beam, and it is inserted plus welded together. So weld plates are being provided and they are being joined. So this is again a connection between columns and beams slab. This is a slab panel with a hollow core slab. So this is a slab panel. This is a column, prefabricated column. The prefabricated beam. All these things are connected together by means of grouting. Again, columns. Reinforcement provided in column. The plates are provided to join the columns. And wall panels are also being used. So this is a typical wall panel. Walls also can be used as a prefabricated. So these are the main components of prefabricated construction. So roofs, beams, slabs as well as column can be used. And the last topic we are going to deal with the slip form construction. We have already studied what is a formwork. Okay, so formwork, I told you, formwork is a temporary structure which is used to hold the fresh concrete during construction. Okay. So slip form construction is a technique which is an alternative to a conventional formwork system. So slip form means actually it is a movable formwork. So that is a slip form construction. So which is used for a continuous vertical as well as horizontal construction. So it is an alternative for a conventional formwork system which helps in continuous vertical and the horizontal construction of the work. Okay. So it provides a continuous work by moving the formwork in the vertical direction or in a horizontal direction. So the process stops only when the required length of the concreting is being completed. And slip form construction depends upon the setting property of the concrete as well as the workability of the concrete. So that is the main factor when you are using a slip form construction. And mainly three types of slip form constructions are the one is a vertical slip form, then horizontal slip form is the as well as tapered. So vertical slip forming, you can see that is mainly used for vertical members. That is the vertical slip. So in the vertical slip forming, the concrete formwork is being surrounded by a platform where the workers can stand, they can place the reinforcement and they can ensure the smooth concreting of the member. And in horizontal slip forming, that is mainly useful for pavements as well as traffic separation walls, where the formwork is moving continuously in a horizontal fashion and the concreting is being done. That means the concrete is poured, being vibrated, and it is worked and settled in place. While the formwork is being moved. So this shows a horizontal slip. This formwork is being moved slowly and the concreting is being done. And sometimes tapered slip forms are also used. So this shows a tapered slip form, and it is mainly used in the case of tapering sections. Say, for example, in the case of construction of a chimney, we can go for a tapered slip. And it requires greater attention, experience, as well as expertise in this field. So this also can be used for a vertical members. So this shows the slip formwork system, a vertical slip formwork system in which this concrete is supplied by through this one. Then it will be provided with yokes. These are yokes. Then top decks will be provided. Hydraulic or lift jacks will be given here. And these are the platforms which are provided for the workers to stand, provide reinforcement and support. So that is the working deck. So these are the parts of a slip formwork system. Construction procedure I already told you. First of all, alignment of these things. That means this lattice truss, yoke, then hydraulic jack, provision of this beams, attachment of this horizontal beams, hydraulic jack, and the construction of this platform. Everything is completed. After that, the construction. And these are the main advantages of using. Since it is continuous, we will get a we can do the completing at a faster rate. So uninterrupted construction can be attained. Manpower can be mainly reduced, and mobility. Then time consuming, less time consuming, the time consumption for the completing process and all, it will be less. Good quality finish can be achieved, and it is cost effective. Since the moving formwork can be used, it's cost effective also. Okay. So these are the main advantages of using a slip. Thank you. So these are the topics have covered in this. This is a part of half of the fifth module. I have covered half of the fifth module, and the later part I have already covered in the earlier session. That is a vertical transportation. Now the fifth module is actually complete. So today I have covered a framework. That means a structural frame in tall buildings. Then what do you mean by framework? What are the different joints used in a concrete construction? Difference between a concrete framed construction as well as a steel framed construction. What do you mean by a prefabricated construction, and what is a slip form construction? I hope it is beneficial for you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, a kind request from our students. Can you briefly explain what type of questions can be asked from this particular topic for the university exams?
Okay. I think the structural system which can be used in a tall building. Write a note on structural systems used in tall building, or differentiate any two types of structural system, or differentiate bundled tube construction or trussed tube construction. Likewise, the questions can be asked. And again, write a note on joints in concrete structures. That is construction expansion joints. So you have to differentiate what is a construction and expansion joint, where it is being used, what is the situation under which construction and expansion joints will be provided. Or write a note on slip form construction. These are the common things that can be asked from this particular topic. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the wonderful session. The session would definitely help the students in preparing for their exams. Thank you, ma'am, for coming forward to helping students during these difficult times. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.